This is Phantology.
You may have heard of us.
What's up, Withered? So, me and Josh are back again, reviewing the John Wayne Cleaver series by Dan Brown, in part
Dan Brown.
or by Dan Brown, by Dan Wells.
Man, maybe if we ever scrape the barrel real low, we can start reviewing Dan Brown books.
There's no chance we could ever do a better review than John Oliver did with his Da Vinci Code rant. So if you haven't watched that, you should. It's hilarious. Anyway, so Dan Wells, in part because we were inspired to read this series, in part because he is co-writing with Brandon Sanderson going forward in the Cosmere. So and we're kind of decided, I think both Josh and I had this series kind of like far back on our TBR list, and it was moved forward a little bit once that announcement was made. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say.
Yeah. So, and the first book, I'm Not a Serial Killer, did not disappoint. We already have a review for that. It's been made into a moderately successful movie that you can watch on Amazon Prime. So I guess the first question we have is if this was like, if I Am Not a Serial Killer was a one-hit wonder or not.
Yeah, I would say definitely not. I mean, I think that the second and third books are at least the same quality, if not improve on I'm Not a Serial Killer in some ways. In a lot of ways, actually. I think that you can definitely see the growth of Wells throughout these books, and that he knows what really worked in I'm Not a Serial Killer and focus on those strengths.
That's fair. So yeah, because it's pretty easy to with like a book that's based so strongly around like a specific concept, mainly like a protagonist fighting against his psychopathic tendencies, right? Like that's easy to wear out that concept like pretty quickly, right? So I was relieved that he was able to find ways to make it interesting going forward. And I think in part that is because he decided to go like the more he decided to make the monsters instead of people, right?
Yeah,
I think that allowed him to have a lot more space to move around, because realistically, like that's the only way this could have worked going forward. I mean, he could have just, I guess, found more like normal.
Yeah, like kind of like the Dexter route. I haven't
really
seen
but like
much Dexter.
Realistically, like, is a 17 or 15, 16, 17-year-old kid going to be able to do that like without upending his whole life, versus like if he has like monsters coming to him, like that's like a little bit different. So yeah, I think that it was able to transfer into being like the longevity of the series was like, I think, made possible because of that choice.
Right. And kind of finishing the first book, I was kind of worried about that. Like I was like, oh, there's 6 more of these, I guess 5 more plus a novella. Like, how is this going to work? I think, like I enjoyed John Wayne Cleaver's character through the first book, but it's like, oh man, this might really wear on me. And this is just a review of the first trilogy. But for sure, I will say that by the ending of the first trilogy, he hadn't started to wear on me yet.
See, I kind of disagree with that. Like, I think to me, I'm in the middle of the 4th book right now, and I mean, I won't spoil anything, but like it's his personality's kind of gotten tiresome for me a little bit throughout as the series goes down, mostly because it doesn't seem like he's learning anything new, or like, you know what I mean? Like he always asks the same question, like, what does the killer do that he doesn't have to do? Like, I don't think he ever asks anything other than that, right? So yeah, I would, and maybe that's believable because really like all these things have been happening like rather quickly to him. But like as an audience member, it's not like super enthralling to read that, you know?
Yeah. I will say, I don't think throughout any of the books, the mystery of who the killer is really that intriguing at all. Like it's usually pretty obvious, I'd say, within the first act of the book, who the killer is. I think the more interesting thing is watching like John's character like figure it out, but also just cope
decide what he
with-
wants to do with that information. That was definitely the
Right,
case with the
yeah.
first book. Like he knew that was Cowley, what that's his name, or his next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Like he knew that within like seeing him murder the hitchhiker and like I don't know, the first half of the book. And so it was more like figuring out how to take him down, figuring out if he even wanted to kill him, or so I agree with
Yeah,
that.
watching
The
him
mystery-
struggle with him struggle with that information. I do wish that with all the books, the mystery of who the killer is would be handled better. Like kind of, or just I don't know. Usually, like we can talk specific. So let's get into full spoilers for the
Okay,
first
full spoiler. So this is
3 books.
We'll start with the second book and then move on to the third book. What about that? So
I'm just trying to keep them straight. Yeah. So the second book
was Mr. Monster,
yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah, and the killer for that one
Was
was
Foreman.
the FBI. Like that was he FBI or just he
was FBI.
Yeah. I mean that one was so obvious. Did you see that coming or not?
I mean,
Or
I read these very quickly. Like I listen to them. Like I like binge listen to them. I can't remember if I binged that one on a road trip or something. So I don't know if I caught the fact that it was, but like I also wasn't like stewing on this,
Yeah,
So-
but it's just like, oh, here's this brand new character that's kind of important.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I think like again, it's not disappointing because that's not the point of the book. The point of the book is like, oh man, how is John gonna work with this wizard that like is messing with people's minds and emotions, and
Right.
how like I just feel like that's more the point, whereas the mystery could have been like wasn't really a point, but I do wish it could be done better anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also like I think the point of the second book at least was to explore like John's relationship with his friends and school and like all these different things, like maintaining a sense of normalcy, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to spoil anything, but by the end of the third book, you can tell that that's just all going to be thrown out the window, right? Like so I feel like the second book was like, okay, so here's John trying to have a relationship with his mom and like get closer with Brooke and like all these different things that like normal teenager would do. And I think that the book is more based around that than like the like murder mystery demon part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, where these books really do shine are the character development aspects of it, and specifically John's character, but also like when he spends time developing outside characters like Brooke and like
Marcy,
like these characters get a lot more intriguing, and you relate to them a lot more and care about them a lot more.
Yeah, so I like, for example, I think that like Brooke kind of asking him out on dates was really cool. I appreciate that. When they went to and like how each of their dates is interrupted by like a murder of some kind. Like it definitely like leans into the like just cheesiness, or at least the pulpiness of the series, which I appreciated. But like it's also like Brooke planning cute dates for him, like where they pretend to be tourists and stuff. Like all that is really endearing, and it shows that like it kind of gives you an outside perspective of John that we didn't really get before, because the only perspectives we really view of him is like how he views himself or how his mom and therapist view him, which are like really kind of skewed because they know all the like dirty laundry type stuff, versus this time we have like Brooke, who just like sees like a earnest guy that saved the day, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I enjoyed that part of Mr. Monster.
That for sure is a really interesting take, is when you start seeing other third parties' view of him, because like there is a reason why the Crowleys welcomed him into their home like that first book, because he just seemed like a quiet, maybe kind of weird kid, but like that
Who's
to
just
himself,
willing
but
to go over and watch fire all day with Crowley or shovel his driveway and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, because that's where he feels comfortable, and like he feels comfortable doing things that, I think that was that's a good point. Um, I do also think that they stepped up the game kind of in terms of like um the intensity of it. Like
Mm.
with the murders and stuff in the first book, you saw them, but it didn't really go into a lot of detail until the end when it got really into what John was doing. But throughout it was like, oh, he saw, like, it was kind of graphic, but I don't know. I didn't really feel like
Yeah. So
I
I feel like the reason behind that was John was really wrestling, I feel like, in this book with, like the book starts out with like fantasies of him killing Brooke, right? So like you have these two different perspectives of people from the outside trying to like get closer to him, and like then him internally struggling with like the fact that he still like wants to kill, right? And so I think the way to that it was resolved in this book, a little bit of the tension was resolved, was showing him like this, basically like holding Foreman up as a mirror and being like, this is what your fantasies are all about. Like, would you actually do this? And he kind of has like, the opportunity to with Brooke at the end with Foreman, and he like chooses not to, so I feel like that was, although maybe like a little bit over the top, which everything in the series is like a little bit over the top, it's still like kind of showing John that he doesn't really want that. Like he's might struggle with some things, but he would never like allow himself to take it that far.
hurt somebody that he cares about. Yeah, I agree, but nonetheless, like it was pretty intense in that like kind of creepy cabin in the woods type thing where they had the women that were being tortured and stuff.
Yeah.
And like you kind of like
the one that was
thing,
trapped in the wall.
Yeah, one thing, did we ever get any like I always thought that was going to be resolved more, and like really isn't.
The wall.
Yeah.
Oh, she died.
Well, I know she died, but like
I mean, the house was burned down, and they found remains of like the person. Like they found her remains.
Yeah, I just thought that was going to be more significant because it was such an interesting idea, but like
I think that was just the idea, like, and I mean, it made the whole the fact that like the boyfriend burned down the house like made him
even worse.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, but it's just like that. For some reason, I thought that she was going to be like some kind of like supernatural being or like something, but
no, she was just like a enhancement for Foreman's like withered sensibilities, like because he was able to kind of draw on two different like the emotions of the person that he was torturing, and then also like her emotions.
And how was, and he was just keeping her alive in the wall, like
yeah, she was hooked up to a bunch of IVs and stuff. They said they found like a bunch of medical equipment.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just really
very creepy.
Yeah, really creepy. That it just you didn't really. I don't know. I felt like I missed something, but I didn't. Like I kind of I got everything, but like
it was just part of the House of Horrors, right? Like So
yeah.
And again, it's like I agree that like it was over the top a little bit, but it also, I feel like it did perform the function of having John confront all these things and kind of being sickened by them, like being fascinated by them, of course, but being sickened by them as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So
yeah, anything else about the second book that really stood out? It's been a while for me. I read them in October. It's now January.
Yeah, I think that the way that like him and Brooke's relationship and like progressed and then ended was like done pretty well, like the fact that she couldn't like unsee what she had seen and like would associate with him, and that with that, like she's like, I know like you're a good person, I guess, but like I can't like disentangle this experience, and like I saw that look in your eye, so
yeah,
I thought that was good, and I was kind of nervous of that they were gonna like he was gonna do like the will they won't they thing in the third book, but I was pleased that he found a way to kind of move on from that without having it be too whiplashy.
Yeah, I agree.
So anything else? I think I was glad that I don't know. So a few things like he kind of I wish that he would have kept his relationship with Matt or whoever his friend not friend was. Like I feel like that kind of fizzled out. Like he did so much work
Yeah.
with like, oh, his dad died. Like I don't know. Like I feel like that relationship kind of went nowhere.
Yeah, that one didn't really work for me in the first book either, though. So
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I don't know. Like I did think that the twist with the boyfriend, not the twist, it wasn't a twist, but it was an added plot element with the abusive boyfriend with his sister was interesting, although it felt kind of shoehorned in at times, because like they had one dinner with him and then it's just, I don't know. I'm glad it was there, but it was also kind
yeah,
of weird
I know
because
what you mean.
yeah, it felt like it was just there to be a red herring,
Yeah, yeah,
So
and to give John like a reason to get in trouble.
yeah. So I don't know. But overall, like a solid book. Like if you enjoyed the first book, I would hope you would enjoy this one. If you like enjoyed the first book enough to like want to continue reading in the series, I think that this
Yeah.
did a good job of like picking the series up and giving it, and plus like him finding the foreman's phone at the end. I felt like that was a nice touch with like how he could reasonably like expect to keep on hunting down these demons.
I think that Dan Wells does an amazing job with the primary characters, like John specifically. Then he does a good job with the secondary characters, like Brooke and Marcy. And then he does a pretty
and his
bad
mom.
job. And his mom. Yeah, I'd say his mom is, especially in the first book, more in the secondary characters.
Yeah, secondary. Yeah, I think she does.
But then like all the tertiary and beyond characters, I think are like one of his
they're just
weaker
placeholders. Yeah.
Yeah. Which they're such short books. I mean, you can't really, blame him. But yeah, it is what it is. Like they don't have too much personality, or if they do have a personality, it's just like a one personality trait, kind of like his friend. Like his friend is just dumb.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
it.
Well, just yeah. So that's something I think kind of connecting it back to him being tapped to write in the Cosmere. Like that's something that could be kind of worrisome, I guess, is that like, with bigger series, it's much more important to like, even for those like tertiary characters to kind of be fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah, but if they can be tertiary characters that Sanderson writes, and then they become like a primary character for the book that he writes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like picture like him writing a Moash book. Like how cool would that be? Or like I don't we shouldn't spoil too much about the Cosmere, but like I think you could think of a lot of characters and from the Stormlight to Mistborn that he could take and do a really good job with writing in
That's fair.
Novel.
Okay. All right. So the third book, that's the I Don't Want to Kill You, right?
That's the what?
Is that I Don't Want to Kill You? That was the name. Yeah, I Don't Want to Kill You. Yep.
Nice get.
Yeah. So yeah, for what it's worth, the second book was rated 4.1 stars on Goodreads. This one's 4.2 stars. So
okay.
Yeah, how did you like this one?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think for me the series goes first. Number 1 was the best. Number 3 was the second best. Number 2 was the third best.
Yeah, really.
I really liked this this kind of shtick in this one. Like the jumping the jumping wizard that would go infect the minds of young women and like slowly drive them to suicide. I think it does a good job in and of itself of serving as like a nice scare factor, as well as like a pretty good meta commentary on like society and stuff, and like the rising suicide rates in young women and young men too, but for different reasons. Yeah, like I think it was good.
Yeah, I agree. I also like the fact that there's like an actual normal serial killer in this one, and that I felt like that was kind of a nice gotcha moment where it's like, okay, not everything has to be like mystical, right? And yeah, so I thought that was a good twist to it.
Yeah, because you're always trying to connect them, like oh, like you kind of figure that it's not just the teenage girls committing suicide, like that they're not
Yeah.
just like, you know, it's not really adding up, and it's not really adding up with the other serial killer, but like,
Yeah.
you
See,
know,
this
it's like,
feels much more like it's not like a Sanderson book where there's like a Sanderlanche, but it's kind of more like a M. Night Shyamalan book, right? Where it's like, okay, you have like maybe like clues that you could kind of be putting together a little bit more with like the suicides and stuff and how those kind of become important near the end, you know. So I enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed, again, like I mentioned when we were talking about the first book, I enjoyed that um after him and Brooke's relationship ended, that Mar I think it's Marcy, right?
yeah,
She kind of stepped in, and I enjoyed the fact that they were like solving crimes together. I thought that was really well done.
yeah.
And
It
yeah,
immediately made me like, I don't really want to compare the two, but it like made me like her kind of more than Brooke, you know,
yeah, she was
because
willing
you're
to
like,
like appreciate John for who he was, for like, you know what I mean. And maybe that was just the fact that they spent a lot more time together, right? Like um Brooks was like a two dates type, you know,
yeah,
situation. So I don't know. Maybe that was just John being willing to share more of himself, I guess. But and the fact that like her dad was in the police force, he was kind of using her for that in the beginning. Um, but yeah, I thought that was a highlight for me.
nice.
So yeah, I thought their relationship was good. I thought you know, I um again with um I don't know, with him trying to like put the clues together and like teaching other people how to do that and like teaching them the questions that to ask. I feel like that's kind of that part to me has gotten old. But it's necessary for him and Mercy to do it together. But like, okay, Dan Wells, like we all know that this is how you think that like serial killers are profiled, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So that part was starting to get old for me in this game.
What did you think of the deaths?
So okay, so we had like we had the suicides, which was nobody, and then we had the um local community figures that were all being killed for kind of like a like religious, pseudo religious reason, and either like their tongues would be cut off or their hands would be cut off or whatever. So it's like, you know, kind of harkening back to the verses of like, if your tongue offends thee, or like your eye offends thee, pluck it out, you know, if your hand offends thee, cut it off. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought, you know, it's, I guess, believable for a serial killer to take the Bible that literally. So yeah, I thought that was well done. What
Yeah,
about
I was
you?
more thinking. Yeah, no, I do. I agree. I think that the serial killer part was done well, and I did like that there were two killers in this one. I think that this is where the book that probably I had the least idea of what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of like the actual serial killer, uh I figured that that somehow a weathered was causing the suicides one way or the other, but I didn't really think of like a body hopper. um yeah, what about like the gut punches, like his
Oh
mom?
yeah. So those deaths. Yeah. Yeah, that sucked, man. I mean, basically like everybody from his like tying him down to his life here is gone, right? Like his mom sacrificed herself to save him, which I thought was very in line with what her character would do. I mean, in one sense, she's kind of been sacrificing her life the entire life, right? Like she, you know, like does everything she can to coexist with a psychopath, and you can it's clearly taking a toll on her, right? Like kind of constantly, I don't know if living in fear is the right word, but like on edge that he's gonna mess up, or you know, she's always like making him say the like recite his mantras before he leaves. um so I feel like it's emblematic that she like ended up giving her actual life form too. So I like that, but it was hard to see. Same with
Yeah.
same with Brooke and Mercy too. I mean, it was just like, holy cow, you know.
Yeah, that was tough.
And I guess Brooke is like still, you know, functional, and that was cool to see them kind of go off, and Brooke being there to like, you know, try and fight, you know, like being willing to join the team that is assembled, you know. So that was good. um but Mercy committing suicide before he could get to her was just like, dang,
I
it's like
know that
a
was
little
rough.
bit too slow.
That was one of those times where it's like you wish that he would just somehow like keep her on the phone, keep her, keep her talking, but at the end,
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it's like, now that we know, like, nobody like could have just not cared about that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you kind of, but the thing is with nobody is that she can be reasoned with in some ways. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
she might have been, he might have been able to tell her how beautiful she was or whatever and made her
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
you know,
He is quite, yeah, persuasive when wants to be. So yeah, uh I know. I think I texted you like immediately after finishing it. Was like, dang, that's crazy. You know, because again, like with the series, like you never, like, you felt like most of the characters had pretty big plot armor, right? Like John certainly does. Um and that's just kind of like the only deaths you see are like just,
the bad
you know,
guys.
yeah, but either bad guys or nobodies, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
for
not
sure.
NPCs, you know. It's just, so that was uh that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's clear at the end of this book that John is about to join like an FBI team that, and like leave, right? Like go off, right? That's pretty clear. And so that is one thing I dislike, when I can tell authors kill people off to like, I
Set
feel like
up the
I,
next.
yeah, to set up plot things for future books. Like, I don't know. That's, it all seems kind of cheap to me. So I didn't love that. Um, but I mean, maybe that's just, you know, the way that, you know, it needed to happen. But I mean, again, like the mother could have just been like, all right, I know that this is your calling. Like, see ya, call me, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
So I don't know. I kind of wish that would have happened, but I guess that, you know, depending on how he wants to go with the series, like John just needed to like only rely on himself from this point on or whatever.
Yeah, and John would have always been worried about his mom and going back to check on her and stuff.
So what did you think about John sparing the life of the serial killer?
Yeah, and that was really interesting. I was glad he did. I think it kind of kept his humanity in check, especially because again, he could see himself in him a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where I'm glad he did it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like, so he was willing to draw the line at only killing the withered or the cursed or whatever. But yeah, I thought it was kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, if you're gonna, like, this person's
yeah,
killing people, like, you
yeah.
gotta
There's the
take him out,
monster,
you know? Like,
but he had him trapped pretty good, right? Like until the cop. I can't. Yeah,
didn't they, I feel like he fought back for a little bit, and um no, yeah, that's what happened. John was gonna spare him or whatever, and but then the guy fought back, like lunged, took him out, and then John was able to talk him into basically killing
oh,
himself.
killing himself. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I thought that was good, you know, like, you know, it showed kind of like the fact that John is like more capable, like capable for more reasons than just like stalking people and figuring out how to kill them, you know. So,
Yeah,
but she is good at
that's true.
that too. So what about the priest? I mean, that's again like an example of like kind of like the therapist from the first book, right? Like a character that's kind of introduced. I mean, I guess the therapist dies, but like, I don't know, I kind of wish that that the priest guy could like come
Stick around to
along.
give
Yeah.
give
That's something
give
that like
Johnson
Dresden does really well, is they, you know, it kind of introduces
introducing. Yeah,
this
and then
like side
sticks.
character, and then that side character just kind of pokes his head in every once in a while until he like ends up becoming a main character.
Yeah, no, I agree. He does. Yeah.
anyway, that's, if you haven't read Dresden, that's fine. But like, I feel like that's there needs to be more of that. If we're like six, if he's going to be 6 books deep in this series, he needs to have a developing
Yeah.
cast of characters.
Yeah, these are pretty serialized. You don't get that as much with these books.
Yeah, but even serialized things, you could. I mean, I guess I'm not too much of an expert in serialized things, but I feel like they end up having the mortician or the, I don't know, detective that pops in every once in a while.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree. It goes back to the tertiary characters, not
yeah,
doesn't do a great job with them.
yeah,
So.
yeah. I think it's also interesting that John needs somebody to, like, pretty consistently, like, either take out his frustrations on, which is like the kind of the priest here, or like throw theories against the wall. Like, he needs like an outlet a lot of the times.
Somebody to talk to. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes that's his mom, sometimes that's his therapist, sometimes that's Mercy or but like, he needs, for however much he thinks to himself that he's like solitary and like introvert and doesn't need outside contact, like, he ends up needing it, and he ends up seeking it out. So,
Yeah,
and a lot of times that's put in the guise of, I can't figure this out myself because I don't understand how people think, so let me go ask somebody that does.
let me go ask. Yeah,
which, fair enough. But
yeah,
so I don't know, I thought it was good. I again like the climactic scene of like nobody, like these are very like you like Hollywood
cinematic.
scenes,
Yeah,
right? Cinematic scenes, right? Like, you got like goo that's climbing out of a body, like into his mom or into him, and he's like fighting it out, and then it crawls into his mom, and then he has to, like, his mom runs and jumps in the fire. Like, that's, oh man, like,
yeah,
it's pretty
it's
visceral,
intense.
and
Yeah.
even like before that, like him building a fire or like soaking the car in alcohol with the intent to like trap Brooke in there. Like, that's all that. I'm like, oh, is he really gonna do this right now?
I
Like,
know.
that's crazy. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you never know what line he's going to cross and when he's going to cross it. Like,
yeah,
that's the
that is the thing. It seems like it's always him getting close to lines, in the third book especially, and then like backing off from it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe I'm gonna like do this, but no, I won't. Like, maybe I'll kill the human serial killer, but no, I won't. Or maybe I'll. So
yeah,
anyway, I guess that's true for the first, for the second book as well, where it's like, oh, maybe like I can just participate in light torture. Oh no, I
yeah,
won't do that. So I don't know, which again, it's interesting because it's exploring this, like, that's the whole point of the series on some level. So yeah, I think, again, if you're 3 books deep into it, so what about this? Would you recommend people stopping here or continuing on? Right, like, okay, this is an okay stopping point. Like, if you've just kind of been lukewarm on the series, maybe you don't want to. You're further into it than I am, so
yeah. That's a great question. I think if you've liked the series, then for sure keep going. Like, I think that if you don't like the series, then you shouldn't keep going, because it's not going to get significantly better. They do change things up enough that there's a chance that you might like it if you keep going. But like, if you really don't like it, if you don't like John, then there's no point in reading.
right.
I think if you're lukewarm on it, then maybe it's like a good chance to like put it down, read some other stuff, and then like let it sit with you and then come back to it.
Yeah,
And then
that's fair.
that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that I was enjoying enough that I just binged the whole series, just like book after book. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. But yeah.
Okay, so I guess that, I don't know. Do I want to do like a worst of the best for the first?
Yeah, I was gonna say worst of the best for the
Okay,
second.
it sounds like you have one. I don't have one yet, so I'll start thinking about one.
Let me think. I don't know if I have one for sure,
Oh,
but
man.
no, I can think of one. I think for sure the worst of the best, like I mentioned earlier, like the cop being the serial killer. I wish either he would have been introduced in the first book and then like been the killer in the second book. Like that could have been a really interesting thing where the killer, like he had a withered hiding under his nose the entire time, like didn't even know it. Like, but just as it is, just like introducing the cop, and then like 100 pages later, him being the killer. I don't know, that
Yeah.
it just didn't really work for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I'm gonna say worst of the bust for me is like nobody's like her motivation, right? Like seems like for a 10,000, like first of all, I think it's the best because I am intrigued on like this parasitical host, right? That like ends up taking over bodies. But it seems like for a 10,000-year-old entity to be still struggling with like teenage girl angst is like kind
Yeah.
of a stretch, you know? So I was like a little bit not sold on that. Like maybe that is just, maybe it's really cool because that's something that you, like certain people never get over or whatever, like body like people with body image issues and stuff, like that's like a lifelong struggle, and you can maybe like say that that's a commentary, and like you said, like it's a meta commentary on like youth suicides and stuff. Like there's definitely things that could make that cool, but like I think you're really pushing to read into those. You know, like either make them a little bit more like explicit and talk about them in a responsible way, but it seems like a little bit too like on the nose to really be like indicative of like those deeper issues. Like for me it was just like this, like struggling with teenage angst and wanting to be the popular girl. Like that's, I don't know, it just not, it didn't really land for me.
I can see where you're coming from. Yeah.
It like felt like it hurts to say, but it felt like a middle-aged man writing for a teenage girl, you know, like a little bit to me. You know, it's like, oh, you know, teenage girls will always want to be the popular girl in school. So it's like have this really cool like you know, withered person that can take over anybody, and she just ends up taking over.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then becoming obsessed with John.
Yeah,
Like,
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. Like I feel like it's a good enough idea that it didn't really pull me out of it, but I totally see where you're coming from. Like,
yeah.
I think it could have, yeah, it could have been done better, but I don't think it was done offensively bad.
No, I don't.
I mean,
yeah, maybe not offensively bad, but it
but
just
again, if you did struggle with those things, then maybe it would have been offensively bad.
for me, it felt like an idea that was forced into, like he probably had an idea of this plot, like that he wanted, like an actual serial killer, and then like the string of like youth suicides that were going on in the school, and like he's like, oh, how could I do that? Oh, let's do it, you know, like have a withered be like somebody that's obsessed with being, you know, like never good enough, or I don't know. So I could see kind of where the idea like comes from. I just again felt like it was maybe not done as well as it should have been. So
Yeah, I can see that. All right, fair enough.
okay, so I want to end with, so again, we've talked about the way that the series is set up is that there's 3 books, and then there's a book that's literally like 3.5, and then the second series, right? So oh, I don't even know the name of the 3.5 book. Do you remember the name? Gosh.
I didn't read it. So
Next of Kin. Okay, yeah. So you haven't read it. So like I'm looking on Goodreads right now. It's literally book 3.5 called Next of Kin. And so we won't spoil anything because you know we said we were only going to talk about the first trilogy. But so Josh, you didn't read this. I did read it. First of all, it's like probably 100 pages. You know, it's pretty short. But I'll just kind of take like a moment to describe what it is. So basically, you're not in John's. He's not the viewpoint character. You're in another person's viewpoint character, and the events of this book take you to about halfway through book 4, which is The Devil's Only Friend. So like you get to a scene in The Devil's Only Friend, which is approximately halfway through the book, that you are seeing now from John's perspective that you saw from the other perspective in book in Next of Kin. So if you don't want to read, like say I don't know, like say you're listening to these books and you can't find the audiobook or something like that, you don't have to. You're not going to miss anything that's plot important, because again, you end up having those gaps filled in for you, but it will be a different reading experience if you don't read it.
Yeah, I can say for sure that like I kind of wish I would have gone back and read it. I just
When you say gone back, do you wish you would have just read it?
No, I don't wish I would have gone back. I wish I would have read it in order.
Yeah.
Having said that, I wish like, because I think after you finish the fourth book, then there's really no reason to go back and read it. Yeah. I mean, if you like love the series and just want to live in every aspect of it, then sure. But the reason I skipped it is because they didn't have it available as an audiobook. Or is it? I don't know if any book on any of the libraries. Did you read it or listen to it or what?
I read it, but again, it was super short. Like I probably read it in a couple hours.
Yeah, I think I forgot what I was doing, but I was in a position where like I could only listen, and I just wanted to keep knocking them out. So like I don't really regret not doing it, but like I think it would be a better experience to read it than to not read it. That's my it's certainly like a, it's a unique thing that I haven't seen. I can't think of, like off the top of my head, I can't think of another like story that's done this, that's kind of, like imagine if the best way you could describe it is like imagine if like the little novellas that are in between each Stormlight book, like I think Dawnshard or I think that's a perfect way to do it. It gives you a different perspective on it.
But like those are kind of have been self-contained side stories. But like imagine if those stories like were like interwoven with the actual plot of the next book.
Well, they kind of are. Like
you never get like a convergence, right? You never see, oh, this is right where Dawnshard ends, and here's the same scene from a different perspective.
Okay, fair enough. I guess I haven't read it, so I can't talk too much on it. But like, I do feel like the plot of the books do make their way into the Stormlight books.
Yeah, and very tangent. This is like two main characters like kind of meeting up, So I don't know. It's a cool thing. I appreciated it. I would recommend you read it, but I don't like, again, I said, you're not going to miss any like plot essential points without reading it. So, that's, I think that's about all I have to say without like getting into spoilers for the next set of books. So yeah, expect one more review. I think that we're gonna, I don't know. I'm just about to finish The Devil's Only Friend. So then I'll have two more books. Josh, you've already read all of them, right?
Yeah, I've read all of them. So I think we should just do a review of the second trilogy after you've finished that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. It'll probably take me, I don't know, I'm starting school back up. So it'll probably take me another few months to get these read.
A few months.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But I noticed that the last one to be published wasn't like, is he done with this series? Do you know?
I think he's done as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he's probably for sure done now that Sanderson hired him. So
that's true.
All right. Well, thanks, Josh, for chatting. Thank you all for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts. I don't think we have a channel specifically for this series because we haven't had like a ton of interest expressed in it. But if you want to hop on our Discord, we'd be happy to have you. Just search Fantology Podcast on Discord and you should be able to find us. And we love to, if you disagree with our opinions, tell us. If you agreed with them, tell us. But we love to chat on there. You can add us on Twitter. So hit us up on there. And thanks again for listening.
All right. We'll see you.